This video was brought to you by Squarespace.
There we go. Hi, weirdly huge Yoshi. Yeah, can I get your medium seafood pizza, light on the shrimp, no olives, and when you eat it, it turns you into a traditional Venetian gondolier. And yeah, that'll do it, thanks. All right, here we go. Are those olives? They put olives. And a farmer, they always get my order wrong. Mario Kart has never felt this good to play. Let's just start there. Every Mario Kart feels a little different. There's always something of a learning curve. It's one reason it can be kind of hard to go back to older titles. There are just so many teeny tiny little subtle differences in movement and feedback. And of course, Nintendo has just been refining this series for so long, across so many games and generations and decades. And for whatever it's worth, coming from a Mario Kart casual, World feels amazing to play. There are probably loads of under-the-hood details I could never hope to identify, all just these microscopic little variables. And all I can do is tell you how I feel about the end result, and it just feels good to control. It's responsive where it needs to be, kind of floaty and drifty where it needs to be. But I actually do know that a lot of this feel comes from how your kart itself is animated. Whatever kart you happen to choose, it is now more of an extension of your character. It squashes and stretches and wiggles and bounces and shifts way more than I think it technically should. Drifting especially, you get these very exaggerated tilts, and with the big rubbery wheels, it gives the game a tactile kind of feel that I don't think the series has quite achieved before. The kart is like a tangible thing in the world now, if that makes any sense. I love how crashes are no longer all or nothing. You can have close calls, you can bump into obstacles and almost tip over. So much of game feel is visual feedback, and the way the kart reacts to your inputs and to the world, it's just so satisfying. And of course, you've got all the new tricks at your disposal. You can hit the drift button on a straightaway to build up a little boost jump, and man, the ability to purposefully jump in Mario Kart, that is very, very novel, very freeing. It's this extra little bit of flexibility I really appreciate, and it can really come in handy if you know how to use it. And of course, it ties in with all the other new traversal options. Grinding is a big new thing for the series, and yet now that I've tried it, I can't imagine a future game without it. With any Mario Kart, you've got to decide which part of the track you want to shoot for. The tighter inside track with the rough terrain, or the longer outside track with the boost pads or the items. You always got to be planning 2 steps ahead, really thinking on the fly. And rails add another layer of complexity, another thing to always consider. Hopping around rails, especially left and right between them, it is just incredibly fun. It's like drifting and tricking. It's just another thing to do to break up the gameplay and keep it interesting. Jumping while on a rail gives you a boost, but you have to be cognizant of where you're gonna land. There are lots of rails that'll break if you hit them wrong, so you gotta jump carefully, which is a genius little detail I don't think I would have ever considered. Then you also gotta factor in wall jumping, which admittedly isn't nearly as much of a thing as I think I was hoping, but it's still a cool option and feels great when I can pull it off. And you know what? I think they've done a pretty good job of balancing all this, introducing these new elements without, requiring that you make constant use of them. I can stick to the ground if I want, and generally do just fine. Or I can play around with rails and jumps, and maybe I'll mess up half the time, but when it works, when I see the opportunity to shoot for some cool move and I actually pull it off, and it puts me ahead a little or gets me out of a bind, it's absolutely exhilarating. I'm sure pro players will probably figure out how to utilize all this to create crazy shortcuts I could never hope to replicate. It probably does raise the skill ceiling somewhat, but for the most part, to me, it just seems like a cool option. According to videos, it seems that there is no one way to go fastest, especially on straightaways. Charging a boost jump slows you down a bit, which counteracts the boost that you get. And then rail jumping is only faster if you're able to chain a few of them together. It kind of seems like whatever works. However you go about it, you'll do fine. You can just go for whatever is most fun and feels right at any given time. It's like Mario Odyssey. Mario Kart has basically become an expressive platformer, where you've got all these traversal options if you want to use them. Another new thing that changes how the game feels, underwater sections have been outright removed. Now instead, you stay on top of the water. On the surface, no pun intended, this may seem like a less interesting option. It was kind of fun to plunge under the water and move through a space that kind of had its own feel to it, kind of like a special lower layer of the track where the physics are slightly different. But ultimately, it didn't really change the experience a tremendous amount. And it dampened, no pun intended, the energy a bit. Now you get to jet right over the water. You maintain that energy. And all these waves are generated in real time, so you're constantly catching air like you're on a jet ski. Like you can trick pretty much constantly. So this new system may reduce the potential visual variety of water-themed tracks somewhat, but in the end, I feel like it absolutely fits with the game's mechanics and style. Now, this is all well and good. New and improved mechanics and animation, as well as a mirror sheen polish, make for some truly incredible Mario Kart gameplay. But it's when you play with friends or take things online that you gotta wake up and smell the coffee. This is still Mario Kart we're talking about, for better or worse. I don't think there has ever been a Mario Kart game quite as Mario Karty as this one. And what is Mario Kart? Well, it's a competitive game that does not want to be a competitive game. Mario Kart is a game where you race, and it pretends that skill is what you need to win. And, I mean, obviously, skill is indeed important to a fair extent. A good enough player will be able to secure victory in most cases. But the rest of us are left scrambling for scraps, because for the most part, Nintendo doesn't want the best players to win every time. They want everyone to have at least something of a chance. They want you to be in first for most of the race, only to suffer a barrage of shells and explosions right at the last second. They want you and your friends to scream at each other. This is just Mario Party racing. The point is not to win. The point has never been to win. It's to have quote-unquote fun. This has always been the case, but World once again takes the series to a new level. This is next-gen frustration. With 24 players, each with 2 item slots, to say things get hectic would be underselling it. I mean, we're talking pure insanity here, and I'm torn. Part of me thinks this is too much. There are times when I feel like it would be nice to win, at least sometimes, to not just always be caught in this maelstrom of items. But then I remember that this is Mario Kart. This is the point. This is literally what Nintendo wants. It is only frustrating if you allow it to be frustrating. You must detach yourself from your desire to get to the finish line first. It's just like life, you know? You just gotta do your best and be happy with however things turn out. Boy, howdy, it is frustrating though, isn't it? It's not so bad when everyone remains kind of lumped together, when the people in the top spots aren't that far ahead and everyone kind of takes turns jumping up and down the ranks. That's good. I mean, honestly, even if it is hard to win, even if it feels like no matter what I do, it largely comes down to luck, it really is fun. I gotta admit it is. I think the real frustration comes when the race falls right back into that groove that you see in basically any Mario Kart game. The person in first is so far ahead that the occasional blue shell is not gonna be enough to slow them down significantly. Anyone behind them is totally stuck in the fray. The person in second is the recipient of like all the red shells, but since they're in second, they are not likely to get any red shells themselves. So that person in first just kind of coasts uncontested to the finish line. This has always been something of a problem, but the dialed-up chaos can make the problem even worse. I will say, though, that even if the chaos is something of a double-edged sword, getting smashed to smithereens isn't quite as frustrating as it used to be. I could be wrong. I haven't done side-by-side comparisons or anything, but it really does seem like recoveries are a bit quicker in this game. There are times when, if I'm going fast enough, something will hit me, and I won't really slow down too much at all. The point of the game is frustration, to an extent, but you can't make the player too frustrated or they're gonna want to stop. So I like that getting hit doesn't take quite as much wind out of my sails. I also love how there are more ways to actually avoid blue shells this time. Introducing the horn in 8 was already a big deal, but now if you've got the right item and your timing is good, you can avoid them by boosting just before they strike. Like even just like a regular mushroom, you hit it at just the right time and you will just barely be outside of that blast radius. Yeah, this can make the issue of one player dominating a race more of a problem, I will admit. But I don't know, I've always just hated the absolute inevitability of blue shells. This is at least another way that a player is rewarded for good old-fashioned skillful play. There is still absolutely no avoiding having your items snatched by booze and lightning, though. Ooh, I'm trying to embrace that frustration, but man, I cannot stand it. I cannot stand how you are not allowed to actually wait for a good opportunity to use an item. No, you gotta use it or lose it in mere moments. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Ooh, I still can't even say that it's bad game design, though. It does make sense. Again, that's life, isn't it? You can't control everything. You just gotta do your best with what you got. Relax and float downstream. Okay, so there really is an actual problem with multiplayer, though, and it's Grand Prix. Having to drive to the next track after each race was a fun idea on paper, but in practice, it doesn't really work that well. The stretches between tracks are just too long, and these are generally very simple, lots of big, wide straightaways. Without a lot of opportunities to maneuver, you just kind of stare at the back of the heads of the people in front of you and hope you get a good item or two. And you spend so long between tracks that the game only makes you do like one lap of the actual track, otherwise the whole race would be way too long. When they first revealed this idea, I imagined that there would be some reason to get to the next track first, rather than just stitching these pieces together and having you do them all in one fell swoop. And after playing the game, I really do think my idea was better. Like, what if there were extra hyper-speed boost pads everywhere and all the item boxes had mushrooms, so everyone got to the next track extra fast? And there was some sort of bonus for getting there first, you know, an extra item when you start the race, or you start a little bit ahead of everybody, just something. The in-between tracks would be like short little mini-games, and then after everyone arrived, you would do the actual race and have at least a few laps. I guess I don't know exactly how to make this idea work, but the way it currently is really leaves something to be desired. And considering the Grand Prix is usually the star of the show, it is pretty surprising that Nintendo overlooked such a glaring flaw. On the plus side though, and this is a very big plus side, Knockout Tour pretty much makes up for it, honestly. Like, as a guy who doesn't really like racing all that much and is therefore very, very bad at it, and who just wants to quit after bungling the first race and realizing there is no possible chance to win, Knockout Tour is the cure to my ails. It is the absolute best competitive Mario Kart racing has ever been for me. You race continuously between several tracks, no stopping, no interruptions, so the whole thing feels like this grand adventure across the map. If you don't make the cut at a checkpoint, you're knocked out and can immediately jump into a new race or, get on with your life. And the longer you do last, the more intense it becomes and the sweeter victory feels. It's the whole racing experience, but pared down to its very best elements. Grand Prix was sent through the purifying flames, and what has emerged is the most fun competitive racing experience I think I could imagine. Even if the whole issue of one player dominating a race is probably at its absolute worst here. At least with the Grand Prix, all the drivers are set back to zero at the end of each race. Here, one person really can just sail ahead, and that's that. Fortunately, the people in the higher ranks get better items as people are knocked out though, so that helps. And even considering that, it's still just the best. I will say, online play has surprised me so far. I haven't played an absolute ton, but the experience has been pretty good. Watching other racers, it is clear that the game has a little bit of trouble predicting where they should be. They kind of wiggle around a little bit, and sometimes hitboxes and whatnot can be a little funky. But for the most part, it's been good. It's easy to find races. I have not experienced any major disconnects or lag. It has been smooth. Just about every online game on Switch 1 was a roll of the dice, and I don't know if things are gonna be improved on Switch 2 overall. I guess we're still kind of waiting to see, but I don't know. So far, so good. Unfortunately, the game's got this weird thing where even if you're just doing a single race against whoever, you still have to get to the course. So you got the same problem of only getting like one lap when you get there. For a Grand Prix, I guess I get it, but like here it just doesn't make any sense. You're just doing one race. It used to be you could get a regular 3-lap race on a main track if the system selected random, so there was this thing where you'd have to just kind of hope enough people chose random. It was an awkward workaround, but at least it worked a good amount of the time. But then, lo, Nintendo heard the cries of the people. They said, "We see that you don't like having to hope you get a random track, so we will fix this. We have updated the game, and now, not even selecting random will give you a traditional race." Yeah, apparently that was a bug, not a feature, and now the game's online experience has simply been made worse. Personally, for me, it's not the worst thing in the world, mainly since Knockout Tour is already my preferred alternative, but it really matters to a heck of a lot of the greater Mario Karting community. And Nintendo's insistence that we have to race on these in-between tracks, no matter what, it is non-negotiable, it's just a little baffling. If there is an absolutely inexcusable problem with multiplayer, though, it's the same problem that plagued Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe. It is a huge lack of options. Man, Nintendo, why you gotta put us through this again? Chances are, if you want it, you cannot have it. The biggest problem is that you can host private races and battles with your friends, but you can't race online against randos with your friends unless you try to join their race while it's populating with other players, which is obviously just a matter of speed and pure luck. It's always been frustrating whenever Nintendo has failed to give us these basic multiplayer options, but this generation, with game chat and like a much bigger emphasis on connection, this is just absurd. Pardon the pun, but pick a lane! Do you want people playing your game with each other or not? Is this another thing where it's like, oh, it's only Mario Kart, it's just silly fun, yeah, you shouldn't want to control the experience so much? I don't know, but this is getting ridiculous. Technically, this is the kind of thing that can, in theory, be patched in later. If this game is going to be the Mario Kart game for the entire generation, then maybe a few years from now it'll look different. They'll keep on improving and adding to it. I don't know, but right now, the multiplayer experience comes with a pretty good dollop of disappointment. And that's not even all of it. Battle mode has once again been treated as an unimportant afterthought. Only 2 modes, Coin Runners, which is exceptionally unfun, and Balloon Battle, which, as always, fails to emulate the childhood experience I so desperately want to revive. I mean, they even gave us the big donut stage, but without the ability to turn off the time limit and turn into a bob-omb when we lose so we can chase around the other players and giggle and punch each other like a bunch of 10-year-olds staying up till 4 in the morning eating pizza, I personally do not see the point. Now, it should be noted that Battle Mode is definitely gonna be expanded over time. Like, I'm completely sure more modes will come with updates. But I don't have any hope that Nintendo is gonna start giving it the love it deserves. Like, I get having limited options when playing online, but if I'm playing with friends, I should be able to customize my experience a heck of a lot more than this. Battle mode just has so much potential to be its own whole thing that's almost an entirely different game. And it's frustrating that Nintendo just does not seem to care about it one bit. Before we continue, a quick reminder that this video was brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace makes building websites easy with no coding, no prior knowledge required. The intuitive builder lets you format things however you want, embed pictures, videos, links, whatever. You can even start with a template if you want, and before long, you will have an awesome website. You can do just about anything: a storefront, content library, portfolio, business landing page. You dream it up, you can probably do it. My site's a really simple blog, so I just draft up my posts, schedule them to automatically publish, and even generate social media posts, and I'm good to go. This allows me to spend more time staring at the analytics, which are built right in. And if I ever need more for my site, there are also many powerful extensions to choose from. To try out Squarespace for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/Arlo to save 10% off your first website or domain. And now for today's recommendation, this incredible Animal Whale book. Lost in Cult does such good work, and their latest book on Animal Well is no exception. Loads of art, dev info, screenshots from old builds, just like everything. They're also selling some really spiffy physical editions of the game. Thanks again to Squarespace. That is the end of the reminder. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the video. I am not able to appreciate every little way that Mario Kart World improves upon or otherwise even changes the formula. I have not even played every Mario Kart, but I'm going to give you some of my thoughts for whatever they're worth. First off, let's talk items, and wowee, do I love how items automatically trail behind you now without you having to hold the button. I am honestly surprised it took this long to get here. I mean, I guess technically the old way was slightly more strategic, but I don't know, this is so much simpler. It is one less thing to have to pay attention to. I am, however, once again disappointed that they've brought back double items, but do not allow us to swap between them. To me, that is the entire point of double items, or at least it was in Double Dash, because that's just a little bit of strategy that I think really enriches the experience. But I guess I can see it from Nintendo's perspective. They want just the right balance of strategy, and they don't want people to, like, get attached to their items and all that. You're supposed to just use what you got, sure. Then another thing I can kind of understand, but it still doesn't feel great, is the fact that there's like a little cooldown when you grab a single item box. So even if you are sure, you're 100% sure that you have hit 2 single item boxes at once, you're only gonna get 1 item. I guess it would be too easy to grab multiple items otherwise. They want the double item boxes to mean something. They want them to be the only way to get double items. Yeah, I see it. I guess I get it. But I can still grumble about how it makes me feel. But anyway, as for the new and newly returning items themselves, we've got the Ice Flower, which apparently comes from Tour. It's not much different from the Fire Flower, so its inclusion does feel maybe like slightly redundant. There are actually a number of items that function very similarly to each other, and it's a little surprising because Nintendo usually likes to boil their ideas down, you know, like keep things as simple as possible, make sure each idea really functions on its own merits, kind of fills its own niche. But I can't say that similar items is necessarily a bad thing. Really, it's just more variety, so I guess I'm for it. Like the Mega Mushroom, for instance. It's not that different from a star. I think the only real difference is that you can hit more people as you go, kind of a mix between a star and a bullet bill. It's certainly fun from a visual perspective, you know, I'm not gonna lie. It feels pretty awesome to just plow your way through a whole huge crowd of people. The feather also makes its return, which does make sense because of this game's bigger emphasis on verticality, all the rails and wall riding and stuff. And I feel like the feather could probably be used really well. The problem is that most of the time, I end up just kind of holding it awkwardly until I come to the next item blocks, and I end up just wasting it. Or sometimes I'll even jump over the item blocks on accident. I'm sure I'm not the only person who's ever done that. At best, I'll like hop over a tiny little bit of the terrain. I don't know. I think the item just is not as versatile as I would like. Out of all the items, it feels like the one with the most specific purpose that kind of has to be used in just the right place. Kamek is brand new. He turns people into different characters temporarily, which, you know, doesn't really do anything, but it's a cute idea. More importantly, though, he spawns enemies to get in your way. Nintendo said that various mysterious things may happen. I don't know if there's like more that I just haven't seen. I've really just seen the character changing and the spawning enemies thing. It really doesn't come up much. It feels like people barely ever get this item. I do think that just dropping in some hazards is a decently clever idea though. I like it. Then the hammer is another new item, and I am happy that we got at least one absolutely brand new item that works so well, I am surprised that it's new. At its core, it's just another thing to throw and hit other players with, but the way the hammers arc over the people in front of you and how they can make this little, like, temporary wall, it just works really well. It really carves out a nice little space in the realm of Mario Kart items, and I really hope it sticks around. So then you've got the coin block, which also seems to carry over from Tour, and it took me an embarrassing amount of time to realize that hitting it gives you a coin, but then it like drops even more coins behind you. So it's not the most beneficial item. You probably end up helping other drivers more than you help yourself. But I like that idea. I like that dynamic. Some items are a little less than ideal. You're essentially trapped into helping the people around you. It's kind of fun. Similarly, the gold shell travels along the ground and leaves behind a huge trail of coins. I like it because it's a bit like the blue shell. It really just kind of plows through everyone who gets in its way. And sure, you are once again providing coins for the other players, kind of a lot of them. You may not even benefit that much from it, but I still like it. It adds to the chaos. I think it's cool having coins all over the place. And you know, that's another big difference with this game. The coin limit is now 20, and it is so much easier to get coins, especially with these new items. The very act of getting my coin count up is just, it's a lot less frustrating and more fun overall, in my eyes. Well, that's it for the new items, but I do want to ask, did they make the blooper even worse in this game, or is it just me? Does it last way longer and get just like right exactly there in your exact field of vision that you need? I don't know, but I do not like it. And I also like it, because I mean, you know, of course I do. I kind of feel like it comes up less now, like a lot less. So if it is true that it's worse, then I really can't complain too much, as long as it's a lot less common than it used to be. Oh yeah, I guess dash food does basically count as an item, right? In a race, it essentially functions like a mushroom. It gives you a little boost. And I guess sometimes it can transform you into a different costume variant. I really do like the idea of the food and the costumes overall, but I can also understand why it nearly didn't make it into the game, because it's not the most fleshed out idea. The way they described it, I kind of expected all the food to grant all these different costumes, and that was why it would make for a really good collectible, especially in free roam. But in practice, there are just not nearly as many costumes in this game as I expected. I mean, like, there's a lot more for the main Mario crew, but I don't ever really race as them. And if you're playing a more obscure character, then you can expect to pick up some food that gives you a new costume, like, once or twice. Ever. And after that, the food is basically just mushrooms that are a little more fun to look at. And then it like makes more sense in the free roam mode, but then you have the same food in the same places in regular races, and it's just, I don't really quite understand the purpose. It's yet another thing where I think I still appreciate it. I'm not like sad that it's here. It is something to make the game at least slightly more interesting, but yeah, I don't know. Just doesn't really do much. While we're talking about characters and costumes though, I cannot even tell you how much I love the inclusion of all these Mushroom Kingdom denizens as playable drivers. Like, this was genuinely a selling point for me. Whether it's Mario Kart or Mario Party or Smash or whatever, I've always been frustrated that we can play as some Mario baddies and races and whatnot sometimes, but Nintendo has been hesitant to pull from too far beyond the absolute most iconic, recognizable ones. This time they've done a complete 180 and given us more playable characters than I ever could have imagined. Absolutely weird picks like Coin Coffer and Conch Door. Forget Boo, how about Peepa? You know, that other ghost that's not a Boo. You can be Monty Mole and Rocky Wrench. You can play as bees and crabs and even friendly creatures like Dolphin and Penguin. Look at Penguin's stupid face. I love it. And really, honestly, I think the inclusion of the Moo Moo Meadows cow as a playable character in Mario Kart is indicative of some kind of deeper change in Nintendo than I think most people realize. Maybe I'm making this way bigger than it is, but I don't know. I just can't see such a weird, meme-y, fan-pleasy thing like this happening in the past. I feel like it speaks to a real creative and playful spirit, a loosening of inhibitions. And even more than simply filling out the roster, now that we've got 24 drivers at a time, this influx of silly characters gives players greater means to express themselves, to pick a loadout based on their own personalities. Who a person plays as kind of says something about them, you know? But we'll talk more about the game's style and character later. Oh, I do have one major complaint in this department, though. Everybody, I mean everybody, every single individual person who played Mario Kart 8 hated how the different costumes were like their own characters on the select screen. It was a ridiculous waste of space, super cumbersome, no reason at all to not let us just cycle between costumes for each character like in Smash. And I cannot fathom, I cannot wrap my head around how they have not only kept the tradition here, they have made it dramatically worse. Like, there's an even bigger emphasis on costumes in this game. There's way more variety in that department than ever. And they've once again made every variant its own character. And there are so many more characters to choose from overall, and you have to cycle between smaller pages. It is simply baffling. It is an absolute mess. It's like they're doing this on purpose at this point. I want to rant about it more because I just feel that strongly about it. It is just that ridiculous, but I don't actually have anything else to say. It's silly. Hey, on the plus side though, I am so relieved that I don't have to pick and choose individual cart parts anymore. I can imagine that for the right person, such customizability only enhances the experience, but I have always hated having to take the time to compare stats, to try and remember which combo I like and refigure it out each time I play on a new system. It felt cumbersome and antithetical to the simple, competitive, but not actually competitive spirit of Mario Kart. Now, karts are just karts. They've still got stats, but you don't need to do any tweaking. One thing I'm iffy on, however, is how many stats are hidden. It's not as easy to tell now how a driver's weight affects their stats, and I just learned that apparently some drivers get bonuses on certain terrain. Like, did you know that's a thing? Part of me thinks that's a cool idea, but then another part just wants to pick whoever I think is cool, and whatever the case, I don't think anything should be hidden. You're making me look stuff up. And again, this is Mario Kart we're talking about. I should not have to look stuff up. So yeah, I don't know about that one. Okay, so let's get to it. I am not a Mario Kart guy. I am not a racing guy. I am not a competitive multiplayer guy. I think Mario Kart games are plenty fun, like obviously, but I'm always really disappointed by the lack of single player content. So introducing one giant open world, I mean, that was precisely the way to get someone like me excited about the next generation of Mario Kart. It's uncanny. That's exactly what they needed to do. I had no idea, but apparently that was it. Part of me still can't even believe that this is real. Like, as a concept, it's still just so unreal. Mario Kart has always been about quick, silly arcade action. You know, it's about raw gameplay, and that's why it resonates with basically everybody on the planet. So taking the idea and creating something grand and ambitious with it, something that's fun to play at your own leisure, a mode where you can just freely explore a great big world, not on your legs, but in your little cart, it's a dream come true. And from a design perspective, this world is a marvel. I know there's a lot of debate around the price point and whether or not the game has enough content to justify it, and of course that's going to vary from person to person. More on all that at the end, trust me. But however you feel, this game really is an achievement. Taking these tracks and building them into a consistent world so that you can see them and approach them from any angle, and designing all these smooth and mostly interesting transitions between them. It's a dramatic departure from the design process of the past, and I think the effort that went into it is easy to miss. Clearly, they've had to overcome a mountain of challenges to make all this work. And sure, I know other games have done things like this. Open world driving game, it's not absolutely revolutionary, but the Mario Kart team hasn't even almost done something like this before. And Mario Kart style tracks presented a very unique challenge compared to more traditional, realistic driving games. And I really do feel that the end result of the dev team's huge effort is truly incredible. Driving around this world never stops being fun. Like, I never seem to stop being deeply impressed by what they've done. And that is a near impossible task because it's so easy to get caught in these little chunks of the map because it's just so much fun to cruise around randomly. You gotta make an effort to stick to a straight path from point A to point B because this This free-form driving, no plan, no direction. It just feels so good. Mario Kart gameplay has always felt good, so allowing the player to enjoy that gameplay, that super refined gameplay without limits, it opens up a whole new realm of experiences. It's like riding in a super cool ride at an amusement park, and it's always been incredibly fun. But you've jumped the tracks, you've broken off the tether, and now the entire park is your ride. You now control the fun. I've played the game a good amount, and yet the simple act of driving wherever without a time limit ticking down, without Lakitu keeping me on the track, it has still not lost its novelty. And man, the feel of this world is incredible. From the very first moments I first sat down with the game, I just fell madly in love with this world. There's just something about it. It's the more natural lighting and visuals. It's looking out over the landscape. It's the music cycling through all these classic song arrangements, radio style. It's all the NPCs and cars and falling stars and parachuting item boxes just all over the place, making the world feel so vibrant and alive. With an open world game, one of your main goals should be simply making the world fun to be in, making it feel good to be in, making it a place you just want to spend your time. And I feel like they have absolutely knocked it out of the park in this department. Unfortunately, though, the game doesn't quite hit the mark when it comes to content. Another important feature of an open world game is obviously lots of stuff to do in it. In modern 3D Zelda games, you've got your shrines and towers and Koroks and caves and enemy camps, just lots of little things to mess around with to give you a reason to spend a lot of time in this pleasant world. It feels nice to be in, you got a bunch of stuff to do to give you a reason to be in it. That's why you can play it for dozens and dozens and hundreds of hours. Mario Kart World does give you some stuff to do. The star attraction is P-switches, which give you these little challenges to complete within a time limit. Collecting all the blue coins or reaching the goal is usually what you gotta do, but the conditions and strategies are all different. Some of these are disappointingly easy, but then some are like super tricky, so there's a decent mix here. They even let you instantly retry when you fail, which is very convenient. And there are a pretty good number of P-switches scattered about. Then you've got question mark panels and Peach medallions, which don't actually do much. I mean, they really just kind of sit there. There's something to get. They give you stickers. I guess that's something. It could be argued that the panels kind of help teach you about shortcuts. They make you slow down and really explore and learn how to get places. But yeah, I don't know. And then there's the food. That is kind of a collectible, but like I said earlier, it's not really as much of a collectible as I was hoping. So it's not like a terrible amount of stuff to do, but the big problem is that apart from your sticker collection, the game doesn't do anything to keep track of what you've found. So unless you keep a journal and meticulously keep track of everything using a guide online and checklists, you're not gonna know which collectibles you've found. You won't have a clue. And honestly, this really does make it hard for me to care. At all. I'm not gonna scour every inch of the map looking for this stuff when it just doesn't do anything. Exploring is fun, collecting things is fun, doing it just for the sake of doing it is kind of fun in its own way, but trying to get everything in this case would be horribly tedious, and if I know for a fact that I am not going to get everything and nothing does anything anyway, then I am not particularly motivated to get any of it. A collectible has got to do something, or I've got to be able to keep track. You've got to have at least one of those things. I feel like at least the P-switches should give you a little checklist or something. At the very least those, because those really are the main thing. Clearing them all is something I would genuinely like to do. That's real content right there. But I do not want to use an online guide and track them all down. Man, they could even put a little leaderboard for each one. How fun would that be? You'd be able to compare your scores with everyone else. I don't know. As it is, there's just not really any incentive to do them beyond, having something fun to do when you're just kind of cruising around. The biggest issue to me, though, really more than anything, is simply the missed opportunity. It is strange that Nintendo would spend so much time creating this huge connected world and not give us a reason to explore it. I can't help but imagine a version of this game where the map is filled with genuine secrets, not just panels and medallions hanging out on hard-to-reach ledges. I mean the kinds of discoveries that delight you when you find them. Another kind of collectible that doesn't feel like it was just plopped down, but is an organic part of the world. Maybe something to do with the NPCs walking around, or the other racers you'll see sometimes. Or maybe something like the doors in Super Mario Odyssey, where you're transported somewhere else for a little challenge. Or they could be shortcuts. There are a few warp pipes scattered about, but they just don't do much. It's hard to even say precisely what the map needs, but it needs something. It also really needed some sort of progression system, even like a really simple one. Something to work toward, something to keep you coming back. I mean, you finish all the Grand Prix, and there's a cutscene where all the trophies combine in the big tree, and they unlock the special cup with Rainbow Road, and I can't help but feel like this should have felt more important. You know, this should have been the payoff for really doing something in the world. Maybe there should have been a special free roam campaign. Nothing super fancy, no cutscenes or bosses or characters or whatever. Just a mode where you gotta go around to all the tracks and beat a certain time on each one, or collect enough of the medallions in each area or something. I understand not wanting to force the player to engage with a mode before giving them access to all the tracks, but this would have really helped me. The game needed some kind of structure, some substance. Instead, you can mess around in free roam for like 20 minutes and feel like you've basically seen everything. Obviously, you haven't seen every single track and site, but you've gotten the vertical slice. You know, you've seen all the kinds of gameplay you can expect to find. And then you can sit down, blast through the Grand Prix in a couple hours, unlock Rainbow Road, and boom, that's it. Like, you've done it. That's the whole game. Now it's just a matter of aimlessly messing around in free roam and slowly unlocking carts and racing against other people. This game had the chance to present a primarily single player, such as myself, with a lot to do. Mario Kart doesn't usually appeal to me because I don't want to just race again and again and again and again against other people. DS has always been one of my favorites because at least it's got a challenge mode. Like, it's something to do. And this could have been that idea, fully realized, just absolutely exploded. It could have been the first Mario Kart to appeal equally to all kinds of players. But it really doesn't. It's not all bad. I can't even say I'm like incredibly disappointed or anything. I do still love the world. It really is so much fun just to be in, even if there isn't much to do. I still feel like it adds a tremendous amount of value to the game. It still does make this the most fun Mario Kart game I have ever played by a wide margin. It's just a shame to see the wasted potential. I will say though, again, it's tough to judge the game right now when Nintendo could end up updating the heck out of it. For all we know, they'll eventually populate the world with way more stuff to do, or at least implement a system for tracking our collectibles. I could easily see Nintendo randomly telling us that they've hidden something cool in the world. Go find it. It's perfect for little random events like that. But honestly, it does kind of feel like if they were gonna get this right, if they were gonna package the whole thing in the most satisfying way, I think that needed to happen before launch. You can't relock all the Grand Prix and Rainbow Road. You can't undo the experiences I've already had and the collectibles I've already grabbed. So I think it's too late for Mario Kart World to be the game it should have been, which is a real shame. But I'm hoping that they can at least improve it. We certainly can't get our hopes up that over the next 8 years, they'll just transform this landscape into this gargantuan wonderland of fun. But we can certainly hope. And I guess while we're complaining, it really doesn't help that Nintendo has imposed so many limitations when playing free roam with friends. When playing online, there's no dedicated option to explore together. Instead, you get automatically pushed into free roam when you're between races. And this very well may be just a problem with me. I completely admit, and it's probably a pretty silly thing to be upset about, but something about it working this way, it just it affects the vibe of the mode. There's always a thing on the bottom of the screen telling you to start a race or wait for a race to start. And you can just ignore the little thing and explore as long as you want. Really let me stress here that this really should not matter. But something about it rubs me the wrong way. It feels like we're waiting for something. This free roam is only temporary. It's the thing that you do between the other things. And all the P switches are disabled when playing with friends, so now there's even less stuff to do in the world. You can mess around and take in the sights and play tag if you want, but it's another case where nothing is grounding you here. Nothing is encouraging you to engage with the world. You get that vertical slice right away and it just loses its luster really fast. This is more of a glorified waiting room than anything. And it's a great waiting room. Don't get me wrong, it's still a lot of fun. It's a really great thing to mess around with between races. But the feel of it is off and there just aren't enough reasons to engage with it. And then when playing offline, I was really disappointed to see that there's no split screen option. My two little nephews would probably love to explore together, but they're using my one Switch. But lo and behold, there actually is a way to free roam in split screen, but you gotta create a multiplayer room and do a secret code to enable this hidden LAN mode or something? Yeah, I'm not kidding. Split screen free roam is locked behind a magical secret code the game doesn't tell you about. I mean, I guess it's a relief that the option is there after all, but that's not the easiest thing for them to do. And also, do I even need to say it? How annoying is that? I assumed that no split screen was a technical limitation or something, just something that the game couldn't handle. But nope, it's just something that the game pretends like it can't do because I don't know why. Even more, when in free roam, there are really no customization options. You can't turn off the music because Nintendo is the only company in the entire world that still fails to give their biggest games simple audio options. And you can't even turn off the minimap. The screen is so clear otherwise. There's no HUD, and it's really lovely and freeing and wonderful, but that map, for whatever reason, is permanent. And I know what you might be thinking right now. You might be thinking, wait a minute, Arlo. I have seen the turn off minimap option myself. Yeah, well, guess what? It doesn't work. Go try it for yourself. It simply doesn't work. I think it refers to the overhead track minimap when you're doing actual races, but it does not affect the free roam minimap. A small thing, admittedly, more of an annoyance than anything, but one of many, and yet another in a long line of examples of Nintendo refusing to let us play the way we want. Let's get back to the good stuff, though. We haven't really talked about the tracks themselves yet, so let's do that. Now, it is true that with the addition of 24-player races, Nintendo has indeed changed how tracks are designed in a lot of cases. As we talked about, the stretches between major tracks in particular can feature a lot of straightaways, a lot of wide open spaces. And even the major tracks themselves are often a lot wider than they used to be. It's understandable because if things are too tight, they will be too hectic too often. But there are times when I start to wonder if this was all worth it. Did they make these spaces too open? Is this design maybe a little bit too boring? Ultimately, was it worth being able to race with 24 players if it meant that the track design had to be like this? However, that is only sometimes, because even at its worst, I wouldn't say that this is a really bad thing necessarily, just a different thing. This game has a different design philosophy behind it. Whenever a series goes big, you're naturally gonna lose some of that tighter, more concentrated feel. It happened with 3D Mario, it happened with 3D and 2D Zelda, and now it's happening, albeit to a somewhat lesser degree, to Mario Kart. Yes, overall the experience is less consistent now, contains a little bit more downtime, a little more fluff, you could maybe call it. With such a change, you lose something, but you also gain something at the same time. You don't want each iteration to feel exactly the same, so it's good for a game to have its own identity. There will be people who miss the old way, but we still have the old games, and this opens up new kinds of experiences. And that's not to say that the track design is always more straight or open. If anything, the design is kinda all over the place. There are plenty of stretches where you got a lot of space to work with, but also a lot of paths to choose from, a lot of options. And there are lots of tracks with tighter turns and more narrow pinch points where the players can kind of stumble over each other in a big heap. And you know, I wondered how these tracks could possibly be as exciting as the ones in 8 without the anti-grav mechanic, but apparently I had nothing to worry about. I mean, sure, you don't like literally end up going upside down constantly, but it doesn't matter. You still twist all up and around, you climb up steep mountains and careen down cliffs and waterfalls. Like it absolutely still feels like a roller coaster ride at times. And that's exactly the kind of thing I'm always looking for. Even if the designers themselves feel like they peaked with Mario Kart 8, these tracks, to me, still manage to feel like some of the best ones the series has to offer. There's such a huge variety of styles here, and the new mechanics dramatically enhance the experience. I cannot stress that enough. Seamless transitions between tracks gives them a sense of place. Looking out over the horizon when you're way up high, it injects a race with this exhilarating energy. And of course, all the new movement mechanics make the simple act of moving through these tracks more fun than ever. As always, there are a great number of returning tracks, and it's awesome seeing how they've been adapted. Between the new mechanics and the seamless world, the designers really had their work cut out for them, but they have done a bang-up job. I think maybe there was like a tiny part of me that was slightly disappointed every time I came upon a track I was already really familiar with. I think just because this whole seamless world idea is so fresh and new that I'm just like addicted to the newness, you know? I want to be surprised around every turn. But I get that every Mario Kart game brings back loads of old tracks, it's tradition, and putting them in a real place and connecting them all together was in itself a unique design opportunity. It is particularly interesting to see changes in a course like Wario Shipyard, for instance. Not going underwater dramatically changes the whole experience, but then they've given us all this wreckage to move through, so it's this amazing mix of familiar and fresh. It's an old track, but it still feels very new. As for the brand new tracks, a couple of them feel maybe slightly underwhelming. The themes feel a little basic, like it's kind of hard to tell that they're even new because they're just so close to the stuff that came before them. But then there are some wild standouts. Great Question Mark Block Ruins shoots you way up into the sky over the water, and it has you twisting around all these awesome, like overgrown, broken up ancient structures. DK Spaceport is a phenomenal showcase of all the game's new ideas. You got all these grinding rails and walls to ride on, and some big open areas that still manage to feel exciting because of all the hazards. Then you got Boost Cinema. It's got you racing around a swampy boardwalk, through a movie theater, and then straight into the screen where everything turns into a spooky old movie. Come on. Like, this track in particular is an example of the kind of creativity I really hope we see more of in the future. It is just such a fantastic idea. And buddy, old pal, old friend, don't get me started on Rainbow Road. If you haven't played the game yet, you're gonna want to skip ahead a bit. It feels a little weird to give a spoiler warning for a Mario Kart track, especially one that you will unlock pretty much immediately when you sit down with the game, but I'm telling you, this is an experience. It doesn't really do anything new or incorporate the new mechanics very much, but it does use all the best elements of past Rainbow Roads and delivers an incredible, just definitive final track. It's everything as twisty and gravity-defying as a track from Mario Kart 8. It's got this massive, massive feel to it. It is a visual feast. It brings you through all these different gorgeous areas. I particularly love the crystalline river. And the music transitions perfectly between each section. I have no idea how they did it so seamlessly. It's amazing. And the way it brings you way, way up into space and then back down to the earth where you can see the whole world spread out before you. I never imagined I would ever play a Mario Kart track that would make me feel kind of emotional. But here we are. And on that note, we simply must talk about the game's overall presentation. When a player is never going to deviate from one linear track, you can craft a lot of elements to look particularly excellent when viewed from a narrow range of angles. In World, they had to make just about everything look good from every angle. Obviously, when you're on a linear track way up in the air or something, they can probably employ a lot of the old tricks. But overall, they had to maintain a level of consistency and try to make the transitions between these different track styles as smooth as possible. The result of this is a Mario Kart game that is perhaps not quite as colorful, not quite as punchy and vibrant, yet somehow it is all the more breathtaking for it. Again, it's that feeling that this is a real place. Everything exists around you at all times. No matter where you are, there is some sort of vista to enjoy. You can look out and see something else in the distance. Major tracks and landmarks are all visible, and they're usually set against some kind of gorgeous sky. A really clever mix of real-time and baked-in lighting give the impression that time is always passing, and we've even got weather effects, adding a lot to the feel. Every Mario Kart track has always had its own vibe, but now they all get to have multiple vibes depending on the current conditions. Graphically speaking, the experience is maybe slightly inconsistent. There are some times when I'm like, yeah, this doesn't look that much better than a Switch game. But then there are plenty of elements that do look really terrific, particularly when it comes to effects and certain textures. The shininess of your kart's wheels and the glow of its headlights look particularly nice, I think. Whatever the case though, I think the simple fact that the game is running at a much higher resolution this time around does wonders. It's not native 4K or anything, so it technically could be better, but it is still a dramatic improvement. The image is so smooth, you can make out so many fine visual details, which makes the open vistas all the more breathtaking. Combined with the positively immutable 60 FPS frame rate, the game really comes alive on the screen, and manages to feel satisfactorily modern in my eyes, considering this is still a handheld we're talking about. It's easy to forget that. And it's wonderful because even on top of a big seamless world and next-gen graphics and all that, the game is more packed with character than any other game in the series. I mentioned the bouncy karts at the beginning of the review, and they really do make a big difference. But then I absolutely adore the slightly chunkier, cartoonier, kind of more retro feel of the Mario cast. Nintendo adhered to a strict Mario character Bible for so long that this feels so refreshing, so playful. It gives total Mario Kart 64 vibes, which is awesome, but then it simultaneously represents a new era of artistic expression for Mario. It's equal parts classic and fresh, and it's also just been pulled off so well. The little animations the characters do have never been more charming. And like I said, with the addition of all these new playable drivers, there have never been more options for a player to express themselves. There's never been such a huge pool of personality on the track. I mean, even little things like the kaboom spelled out in text when something explodes. It's such a lovely little detail. And oh my, can we finally, here near the end of this review, can we talk about the game's music? The OST is itself a gargantuan library of Mario Kart music tracks from throughout the ages. But the real joy comes from the new arrangements of songs from the entire Mario sphere. So many songs are represented here, and usually these are songs we've all heard a million times before, but this time they play around with all sorts of unexpected genres. Like, how about a ska version of Flower Garden from Yoshi's Island? Or an easygoing version of Fossil Falls from Odyssey, heavily featuring both piano and what sounds like a sitar? Did you know that Nintendo has never given us a new official arrangement of Dire Dire Docks before Mario Kart World? Yeah, and now it's like a cheesy 80s smooth jazz kind of thing with this like swelling orchestra behind it. That is a mere handful of the many examples I could give. And like I said, songs just play radio style when you're in free roam. And really, the slow discovery of each of these songs has been a surprisingly significant part of the overall enjoyment factor for me. Like this one thing has genuinely uplifted the entire Mario Kart World experience. It's just so much fun. There are just so many fun arrangements that it feels like you're never done hearing new ones. I really do believe that overall, Mario Kart World is the best the series has to offer, and the kind of ambitious, next-gen experience we needed. But it doesn't just improve upon the formula. Between everything, all this playful expressiveness, all this character, all these new moves, the extra verticality, there has never been a Mario Kart game that has better embodied the spirit of Mario. What is Mario? He's colorful, he's fun, he's bouncy, he jumps around everywhere. And when you imagine Mario, but a car, this best represents that idea. So here we have a Mario Kart game that just about perfects the formula mechanically, while similarly perfecting the execution of its very premise on a creative level, all wrapped up in a giant open world that acts as a dramatic evolution of the series, an experience that is truly new. So, yeah, it is quite disappointing that Nintendo failed to fill this world with stuff to do, largely failed to pack enough content into the experience. This is the most expensive game they have ever sold. For some people, the price is not gonna matter at all. 10 extra bucks for a Mario Kart that's this fun to play, that they'll be playing for countless hours throughout the rest of the entire generation? That's nothing. For others, it is a big problem. It's not even almost worth that much. Wherever you land on the spectrum, though, Nintendo absolutely should have recognized that there would be a very broad spectrum. They should have anticipated that people would react this way. If you're gonna charge this much for a game, you have simply got to deliver. You can't give players any reason to doubt their purchase. So, Nintendo really fumbled the bag here. Again, it's possible that they're gonna update the game and add more stuff later, maybe even for free if we're lucky. Maybe in only a year's time, this review will feel sadly outdated. But even in that best case scenario, Nintendo still shouldn't have released the game in this state initially. The release a game in a bare-bones state and update it over time model simply does not work. We've seen it again and again and again. All it does is generate a lot of bad press. People want to feel like their purchase is justified on day one. I mean, look at what's happening right this literal exact second. What am I doing? Instead of just talking about how great I think this game is, how much fun it is, how it's a bold new step for the Mario Kart series, I've got to close out the review with a whole thing about the content and the price. This conversation is being built right into the game's very legacy. The release of a new Mario Kart game should be fun. It should be a big celebration. And especially considering Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was one of the most successful Nintendo games of all time, it basically defined the Switch generation. This right here, having the next biggest, craziest Mario Kart game on Switch 2 on day one? It should have been a big deal. But the high price and the scant content is the bad apple kind of spoiling an otherwise lovely bunch. This could have been Mario Kart's Breath of the Wild moment, but they just didn't stick the landing, which is such a shame. Like, I really have no doubt that they put a lot of work into this world. Maybe they even spent an extra huge amount of money on it, and that's why they charge so much. But it's not just about the investment. You gotta consider the final product. You can't just work harder, you gotta work smarter. You can't just build something big and impressive, it's got to actually do something. If you put all your eggs in the open world basket, never mind, you get what I'm saying, that's enough metaphors. Nintendo screwed up, that's the point. But I don't want to end this review on a depressing, negative note, so I will close things out by saying, Burgerhead Toad, Game of the Year, raise the price. Yeah, hi, can I get your cheeseburger? Let's get that almost as tall as me. Actually, no, I'm pretty hungry. Make that as tall as me, and can I add 5-inch thick slabs of bacon, please? And that'll be to go. Oh boy, that smells good. Oh, here we go, here we go. Oh, you gotta be kidding me!